My dear friends, one of the most, celebrated scientists that has ever lived is Albert Einstein. And we know the significant contribution that Einstein has made to humanity. But Einstein once said that one of the most important things for us is never to stop questioning. He says there's a reason why God made us to be curious about things in life. And it is about this curiosity that he himself became such a great scientist, because he continued to question and question and question and was never satisfied until he continued on that path. And I think that is a very, very common experience for every one of us, that our lives are nothing but a series of questions. If we truly think about it, that is pretty much what we do almost every day of our lives. We continue to question and continue to question. And the questions in our lives fall in four basic categories. The first category is questions about our identity. We think about, who am I? What do people think about me? What is this life all about when it comes to my contribution? So the very first thing that preoccupies many of us is questions about our identity. The second set of questions are questions about meaning. What is the purpose? Why does God allow this to happen? What am I supposed to learn from this experience? Where is this going to? Where is this leading me to? So the second set of questions we ask ourselves are questions about meaning. The third set of questions we ask ourselves are questions about morality. And when we think about questions about morality, we think about our actions. With all of this happening around me, what am I supposed to do? What does society expect of me to do in this case? What is the right decision? What is the right choice? And of course, the last set of questions we ask ourselves are questions about process. And when we think about questions about process, we ask the how. How am I supposed to go about trying to resolve some of these issues? So those are the four basic questions that we continue to ask ourselves. Now, the purpose of all of this is to understand that every single one of us, regardless of whatever it is that you are in life or whatever you do in life, every single one of our lives are somehow defined by these questions. Questions of identity, meaning, morality, and process. But the great difference is in the person who has faith and the person who does not have faith. The person who has faith approaches these questions from a whole different perspective. Someone without faith has a whole different perspective on which they too respond or at least approach these questions. And I think that's the point Jesus makes in today's gospel. Jesus wants us to understand that as we go through this life, we too shall be filled with questions. We shall ask all these questions about identity, morality, purpose, meaning, process. But that the difference in our perspective is based on the relationship that we have with Him. Because we almost understand that there's no set of experiences in this life for people who believe in God and a different set of experiences for those who do not believe. Every single one of us gets sick. Every single one of us goes through suffering. Every single one of us, the same rain that falls on me is the same rain that falls on the person who doesn't believe. We all go through a set of similar experiences in this life. The difference is in how we process those major questions and how we allow those questions to inform and to direct us. And so Jesus says the person who allows faith not only simply to be the context within which they process, but continue to follow faith in trying to respond to those questions is like the person who built their house upon solid rock. Is the person who somehow builds upon that faith, that relationship with Christ. But the person who doesn't have that faith, who doesn't have that perspective, that connection, is like the person who built on sand. And my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, I think for many of us, we take for granted the fact that, we come to Mass every day. For some of us, we take our faith seriously. We try to be engaged in church. And as important as all of that is not enough. Each one of us requires an amount of time to be able to spend to ponder on these things. There has to be a level of intentional engagement in these questions. Sometimes the greatest manifestation of a lack of faith is among people who come to church every day. It's among people who spend a lot of time at Mass. Why? Because they do not intentionally approach these questions. Somehow we take it for granted that because we are exposed to these things, somehow because we continue to engage ourselves in these things, somehow de facto, and somehow I continue to enjoy that perspective. But I think what Jesus is saying in today's gospel, and Jesus is very clear, it is not those who call me Lord, Lord who will enter the kingdom of heaven. But there has to be a level of intentionality on our part. There has to be a level of intentional engagement. One of the driving motives behind why I decided that we should build an adoration chapel is to give every single person in here a chance to be able to engage some of these questions in a very intentional and in a very deep way. Every time we come to Mass, we are participating in a celebration of the church. Whether you are here or not, we are going to have Mass. But if you're not engaging these questions, especially within the silence of Jesus speaking to you and you speaking to Christ, you will never get the answers that you're looking for. You will never get the perspective that is necessary. When Jesus says in today's gospel that those who continue to listen to the word of God and observe it are those who build their house upon solid rock. The solidness of that rock is based on the intentionality with which we continue to engage these questions within the context of our own heart. And therefore, it is not sufficient for any one of us somehow to participate in the liturgy and think that that could help us to grow in faith. The liturgy is important to continue to build unity in community. The purpose of the liturgy is to connect us to the broader world, to ensure that we understand the primacy of God in our lives. But the purpose of the liturgy, the purpose of the Mass, the purpose of this celebration was never to help us to answer those deeper questions in life. The way we're able to answer those questions is the amount of time we're able to spend in silence, in the presence of Jesus Christ, trying to process, why is this happening and not this? Why am I this person and not this person? How am I supposed to respond to this challenge and not this way? That is the context and that is the environment that every one of us needs as we continue to respond to some of these big challenges that we encounter in life. The most beautiful thing about that image that Jesus uses in today's gospel, when Jesus says, those who listen to the word of God and observe it are like people who build their house upon solid rock, is that Jesus is not only using an image that is relatable, but Jesus wants us to understand that even while we are still here on earth, we could continue to enjoy the fruits and the benefits of a life connected to Him. And that is why He uses a very practical image, that there's a sturdiness here on earth. Religion is not simply about what happens in the next life. It is about how we are able to navigate some of the big challenges and the big struggles in this life. It is about how we are able to live a life that is grounded upon a rock. And my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, when we're able to engage God in that way, with that level of intentionality, we do recognize that not only are we going to live lives that are founded upon solid principles, like people who live lives built upon solid rock, but we know that in the end, we'll be able to find true meaning, true hope, and true peace, because we have a connection to Jesus Christ that there's no other philosophy or no other logic of life that could provide or supply that perspective. And so in our Eucharistic celebration today, may Almighty God help each one of us to continue to engage these great questions in life in a very intentional way, recognizing that in the end, every one of us, through our faith, we have taken the most important first step, which is to be in relationship with Him, the one who created the universe. Praise God.